On today's episode of Fin Too Deep, will the Miami Dolphins be buyers or sellers at the trade deadline? Should they look at acquiring Russell Wilson as their contingency plan for the rest of the year, or should they stick with a guy like Tyler Huntley? Also, are we ever going to have the magic and see that explosive offense that was must-see TV ever again in Miami? We got a lot to talk about on this episode. We dive in too deep with myself and Neal Driscoll. Do me the favor, smash the like button, subscribe if you're new, and as always, let's get into this.
You have got to be kidding me.
Jalen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown.
And he will score. Deep upfield on the near side, man open. Touchdown. The run from Tua Tagovailoa. Touchdown.
He's going deep. He's got it for a touchdown.
Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan. Let's go!
You're listening to Fin Too Deep.
Tua back to throw. Blitz coming. They get to him. No, he takes off running. And he's in. Touchdown, Miami.
With the sixth pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Miami Dolphins select Jalen Waddle.
Giving you unfiltered, informed, and controversial takes on the Miami Dolphins and the NFL Draft. Here's Reason and Neal.
What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason. We're back here for another one. We're going to dive a little Fin Too Deep today with myself and Neal. We're going to talk about the trade deadline because, you know, what's crazy? We're not actually that far away. And here's the thing, Neal, and I mean, we'll get into it further as we go along here. But, you know, that trade deadline, it's not far away. And the issue is we are in that flux right now of, are you a buyer? Are you a seller? We'll talk about all that. But before we do, Neal, that we're meeting here for a Victory Thursday of sorts for the first time in a couple of weeks. It was ugly. It wasn't pretty by any stretch of the imagination. But how you feeling coming off that win? We got the trade deadline November 5th. We are on our bye right now. We got the Colts coming up, who are right on our tails in terms of in the playoff chase right now. The Miami Dolphins are still in the thick of the AFC East hunt and still in the thick of the playoff race, even though, oh boy, we shouldn't be. How are you feeling coming off a ugly win against the Patriots?
Yeah, look, it's always good to get back in that win column, man. Losing multiple weeks in a row was awful. And, despite some of the stuff that I've put on my timeline, I believe if Tua never gets hurt, the Dolphins are 4-1 at this point. I think they beat Tennessee. I think they beat Seattle. And a lot of that really is because the defense is a lot better than I thought it was going to be. And it continues to be that. Like, that Calais Campbell deal looks like an absolute steal at this point. With the Christian Wilkins injury news, I'll tell you, man, it seems like maybe the Dolphins made a really good decision there. And I'm all about saying, hey, Calais, why don't we do another year and run it back? At this point, I think having Calais Campbell makes a lot of sense. But, I think the Dolphins have the talent. It was ugly. The first half was just as ugly as any of those other games. And then Mike McDaniel started to play conventional football and running the ball. And the best natural runner on this football team, let's be honest, is Jalen Wright. And it was good to see Raheem Mostert back. I think Raheem Mostert looked fresh. He looked really good. And maybe the way we attack the running back position for the next 2 years is with a three-headed monster where, I think 18 is more and change of a pace might have a negative connotation, but like what he can do as a change of pace back is very special. in between the tackles, I think Jalen Wright, I mean, that jump cut ability, and him hitting those holes, it looked like Jamal Charles out there. Same number, dreads flowing behind. It looked like Jamal Charles for me. So always good. I will say that the one thing that has to get better is the special teams, man. We are not good enough a team to lose games because of special teams. Daniel Crossman, this cat, we talk about Chris Greer having 9 lives, and like Danny Crossman, he's got fucking he must be living in an apartment with 10 cats with the way because that special teams performance, the block punt, the missed field goal, and then the botched field goal is an absolute disgrace from your special teams unit, and you need those units to carry the team when you're on your backup quarterback. All in all, I'll take the win. I think the Dolphins should have won by 20. You know what I mean? To be honest, even with Tua being out. But I'm happy we're 2-3, and you nailed this. The AFC is not as good as we thought. The Browns are awful. The Bengals are awful. Like, there's a lot of teams off to a slow start. I think a team could get into the playoffs with 9 wins. And if you would have told me that a month ago, I would have said no chance.
Yeah, I agree.
And, look, I'm very reactionary. I was destroyed when we got our asses kicked against the Buffalo Bills.
This guy's texted me during the game, fire this nerd.
I did say that. And I'll be honest, Mike McDaniel better freaking continue to run the football and not go back to what.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, Neal. We talked about it yesterday, me, Richmond, a ball game. Are you worried that when Tua comes back, he's going to revert to drop him back 30 or 40 times instead of, because I've talked about this ad nauseum. One of my keys to victory last Friday for my preview show, because I didn't know Raheem would be back yet, right? I said Achane and Wright need 35 to 40 touches. Achane, Mostert, and Wright combined for about 38 touches, and you saw the output we got. Do you think, and I always go back to Tua at Alabama, specifically that LSU game, Neal. The first half, Saban put the game on Tua's shoulders. They weren't really running the ball. They had a little bit of offensive struggles, some turnovers. Second half, they lean on Najee and the run, and Tua started lighting. Remember, Derek Stingley was the number 1 corner as a freshman that year, started lighting everyone up, and if it wasn't for Jerry Jeudy drop pass, they actually probably win that game. But since college, that's been the best recipe for Tua's success, is to have a successful run game to lean on. Do you think he sticks with it, or do you think he reverts back to dropping Tua back 30 to 40 times?
I worry that it's going to be the latter, that we're going to be a pass-first football team. But I think the Miami Dolphins are the best version of themselves when the running game is what's paramount to their offense, what's the most important. And then Tua can kind of feed off of that. And I think we've saw that when they control the game with the run, they get the chains, and all that's going to do is pull defenders into the box. And then you can take those deep shots with Waddle and Tyreek. And, that was another good thing to see those guys start to get a little bit more involved in the game last week. But, Mike McDaniel has to swallow his ego. His biggest flaw as a coach to me has been his ego, where he has to think that, he has to showcase that he's this mad scientist. Sometimes you don't have to do that. Simplicity is your best form of sophistication. Run the football. If Tua's only throwing the ball 25 times, 30 times a game, and we're running the ball, the rest of the time, I think that's the perfect recipe for success for the Miami Dolphins. It's, I think this game against the Colts is really big. I'll be honest. I think it's a huge game. Did we just beat the worst team in football without Christian Barmore or Jabril Peppers and Jawan Bentley? Or are the Dolphins starting to show that if they run the ball, they're a dangerous team? If they can do that against the Colts, who will be out without Michael Pittman, that are a little banged up in their own right, you leave that game 3-3, and potentially having your quarterback come back, everything you want's right in front of you. The Dolphins lost to the Bills in that Sunday Night Football team. Sure, it was ugly. We all wanted different things that we've seen in the past. The Bills just have our number. McDermott has our number. He knows how to coach against us. That's a demon that, I don't know when that gets exercised, but I don't think the Dolphins are that bad of a football team. Every team in this league has had spurts of looking pretty bad this year. Maybe the Vikings and Chiefs are the exception, but the Ravens were 0-2, right? And everyone wrote them off, and now they look like the best team in football, right? This league is not, there's a lot of parity in it right now. And if the Dolphins be 3-3 and get Tua back, with the way this defense is playing, getting Tyreek and Waddle back involved, Jonas Smith starting to look like he's getting comfortable here. I think the Dolphins can make a run, but there's a lot of ifs there. So first and foremost, get as healthy as you can at the bye week here. And I see in the chat, it looks like Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman might be out when we play the Colts. Like, if you don't get that on a silver platter, that's what you get, man. So I don't know, man. I think this is a winnable game. And if you get to 3-3, you never know what's going to happen. There's a lot of parity. There's a lot of teams that are going to come back down to earth. 7 teams make the playoffs, 4 division winners, 3 wild cards, right? So I think the Dolphins can find a way in that wild card play. Maybe this is the season reason where we start slow and finish strong versus what we've seen in the past, which is when we come out of the gates fast and falter down in the end.
Well, that's what I think we're all hoping for, is a turn of fortune where we come out slow this year, but we finish really strong, right? The problem is, and I know you mentioned Cleveland's not good right now and stuff. You just look at when Tua's coming back, that schedule starts to get brutal again. This is the thing that sucks, is this is this part of our schedule where he's been hurt, where we're supposed to be making up the most ground right now, and obviously we haven't. You know what I mean? So
can I let me play devil's advocate to that for 1 second, because I agree.
Okay, go ahead.
Because whatever, I saw that we had the easiest schedule league. I don't care what that number says. That's all week to week things change.
Yeah, it's fluid. Yeah.
What I will say is, though, the Jets don't look like a good football team right now.
No.
The 49ers don't look like that great of a football team right now. The Packers don't look like that great of a football team right now. Like, those teams that I thought were going to be really challenging. And look, just like we don't look like a great football team right now, some of these teams are going to get better, right? And, if the 49ers, for example, get Christian McCaffrey back, they're probably a way different team. As good as Jordan Mason's been, he's not Christian McCaffrey. But I will say that, like, some of these games, like I didn't think we had a chance to beat the Packers, even with Tua on Thanksgiving. Who knows, man? If we run the football against them, we might be able to, So I don't know. Like, the Texans will be challenging. There's some games that are still challenging. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I just don't know. Like, it all depends on me when Uno gets back. If it's Arizona, we can go grab the season back pretty quickly. But I think that's ambitious until I hear, you know what I mean? Like, he's coming back. It could still be a few weeks out. So I'm not counting the chickens before they hatch here. I just think what looked really, really bleak a couple weeks ago maybe isn't so bleak.
I mean, and we're 2-3, right? We got the Colts behind us at 2-3 in the 11th spot. The Raiders and Jets are ahead of us at 9-8, and both in 2-3, right? We face the Colts coming out of the bye. We face the Raiders in like a month, right? We face the Jets 2 more times. The Chargers are 2-2. They got the 7th spot. The Broncos got the 6th spot. They're 3-2. The Steelers got the 5th spot. They're 3-2. But really, the Steelers and the Broncos, it feels like the wheels could fall off at any moment for those teams. And, don't buy into the early season hype. You got to let those seasons for those respective teams play out. So, I mean, you can see that there still is clearly a path to the playoffs here. You know what I mean? For the Miami Dolphins. And you mentioned, not a huge drop off between Wilkins, and maybe we got out of it at the right time. Right now, when you go to PFF, the highest grade defensive tackle duo that have played a minimum of 3 games are Calais Campbell and Zach Sieler. Calais has a 79.8 and Sieler has a 73.1.
Dude, Zach Sieler's been playing his ass off. And so has Calais Campbell. Dude, Zach Sieler, I'll part of me worried that if Christian Wilkins left, if Zach Sieler would come back to earth. He's as good as he was. Calais Campbell, I'll be honest, that's the least of our worries is the loss of Christian Wilkins. Maybe the loss of Robert Hunt has reared its ugly head here a little bit, with Liam Eichenberg still being an absolute disaster last week, giving up a sack, a horrible holding call. But I'll do that. Zach Sieler, to me, give me a team with 53 Alec Ingold, Zach Sieler types, man. Those dudes are just dogs, warriors that do their job. Zach Sieler, man, he's starting to really seem like he's actually taking more of a vocal leadership out there as well. He seems like this is his defense a little bit, man. And Jordan Brooks has been playing pretty damn good.
He's been good, yeah.
And Jalen Ramsey, he pissed me off because Demario Douglas was catching some balls on him in big moments, but he's been playing well. Look, I know Holland's out. I think we're going to learn a lot about the Miami Dolphins without Javon Holland. And what I mean by saying that is I don't think we're going to miss much. Marcus May's been playing well, and I think Javon Holland's a great player, but I think he's I think
Elijah Campbell got away with that. That Jalen Polk touchdown that didn't count would have been against Elijah Campbell.
Horrible
He got
rule,
away
horrible
with
rule.
one.
Horrible.
He got
rule.
away, but Elijah Campbell, Javon Holland's replacement, got away with a blunder in the end zone.
How long is Holland out? I know it's week to week. Do we know any?
I don't know any time frame.
Broken hand. He can play with a club, right?
Yeah, he could. Yeah,
so maybe because it's fresh. You have a bye. The bye week comes at a good time for that.
Yeah,
he probably misses Indy and comes back. I would say in 3 weeks, right? Like I think that's. I'll be honest. I'm no macho man. I played a football game with a broken hand in high school. It hurts like shit, but whatever.
What about that boy? I'm giving away a autograph of him when he gets his first sack. Chop Robinson, that's the card I'll be giving away during a live reaction stream when he gets his first sack. He had a really good game. He forced that incompletion on third down to Jalen Polk because he decked Jacoby Brissett on the stunt. And he made himself, when you look at the hole he got through, he made himself real skinny like a running back to get through that hole. He had 5 pressures, according to Next Gen Stats. Him and Calais were number 2 on the team. They both had 5 pressures. It feels like it's starting to come on for Chop a little bit here, and it feels like that sack that first one is gonna come, and they may come in bunches.
Yeah, you know what? The one criticism, and I'm the president of the Anthony Weaver fan club, that I have for him is that I think he needs to move Chop around a little bit more and get him in the A gap a little bit, like get him, like move him around like a chess piece. Because if I had to put
what they did at Penn State, right?
Right. If I had to pick a team MVP for the day, and I can't believe I'm actually saying this, my team MVP would probably be Emmanuel Agba. Like he's been awesome. He's been awesome, man. And he's another guy, man. Maybe you bring him and Calais back with 1-year deals just to keep depth on the defensive line. But I think what you'll see is Chop Robinson is going to be crucial, and his development's going to be crucial. There's no more. This is your rookie year. Like we're going to start it slow. With Jalen Phillips going down, it's like Chop. Your pressure's been good. Now we need to just start finishing.
Are you concerned we haven't seen Mo yet?
I'm shocked that we haven't, because I thought he was more NFL ready than Chop, to be honest. But I think it's we also have to put into perspective. He was a 5th round pick for a reason, and sometimes those guys, I think they probably want him to add NFL strength a little bit. This isn't Colorado State anymore, man. These guys are bigger, stronger, faster. But I do think that actually, like, another guy that played pretty well in limited time was Tyus Bowser. Like, he was around the football, and he was a guy that I mentioned when we had Anthony Weaver, and he played really well in the Baltimore defense, Bowser, and I think he's a very capable player. Like, I think what we're seeing is that the coaching is putting the talent in position to proceed. I don't think this defense has more talent than last year's defense. I just think they're better coached. And if that means that I think Anthony Weaver's a better defensive coordinator right now than Vic Fangio, then I'm saying that.
Yeah. Well, you'd have a pretty good argument seeing as how things are going in Philadelphia right now.
The new Vic Fangio scapegoat out there, right?
Well, what would you listen? This is a bit of conversation. Would you add a guy like Devin White to the practice squad right now? Given Anthony Walker hasn't been that good when he's been out there, they clearly don't trust Channing Tindall at this point. Duke Riley has been a disaster on special teams. Remember, he didn't just take, whiff on that blocked punt. He's had some special teams penalties and some special teams whiffs already on the weeks before that. Duke Riley hasn't been good this year at all either.
That's a good nickname for Duke Riley. Disaster. I like that, because that's what he's been pretty much whenever he's played defense. But the answer to your question is sure. Why not? Devin White's probably more accomplished than either Jordan Brooks or David Long Jr., if we're being honest, right? Like, Devin White can play some football. Like, if that's a guy that, you're not breaking the bank because he needs to prove it now, and you're getting this guy for $2 million, like, I like that because I remember the wrestler guy, Duke Dumpster Drosy. Yeah. But why not make a run at Devin White for cheap, man? Like, he's a good, I know that things ended for him not in a great way in Tampa after he was there for a long time, and he looks like he's a fish out of water over in Philadelphia for Vic Fangio, but nobody knows that Vic Fangio doghouse more than us, right? Like, we know that's a real thing here. And Devin White, because I do think Anthony Walker has looked very pedestrian. Channing Tindall, to me, like Channing Tindall, this is probably his last year on the team. Like, I just don't think he's offers much. They don't trust him, and they shouldn't. He hasn't given them any reason to trust him. But yeah, because I even think this: if you get Devin White here and he plays well, you have a free agent decision on David Long Jr. as it is. Maybe you sign a guy who you think's the better of the two at the end of the season. Because David Long's injuries concern me. Like, his availability always coming in out of games. Like, I'm over.
Didn't Vrabel call him out for that too, right?
Yeah, and we knew that when we got him. That's why he was so cheap. You know what I mean? He is, another Terran Armstead type player that, good player when he's on the field. But I will say, Terran Armstead, when he is healthy, man,
he's dominant, brother. He is dominant.
His tape, when I watched that tape, because I wanted to watch, I actually did it to watch Robert Jones. I really did. I wanted to see, because Robert Jones had a really good game for all.
That was actually his best game so far, since even including the preseason. Robert Jones.
Terran Armstead, that looked like our boy Richmond Webb out there. Like, that's what it looked like out there to me, man. And then it's like, because here's where this team will do this to you, man. And it's the seesaw. Like, 2 weeks ago I was on here saying you got to cut Terran Armstead. You know what I mean? Let him retire, like all that stuff. You see a game like that from him, and you're like, dude, that's a top 5 left tackle in football.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's such a dangerous game to play, to like keep going back in on the same players. But when you give up on them, like, is your backup capable of doing that? And as much as I have a lot of faith in Patrick Paul's upside in the next couple of years, he is nowhere near the caliber player right now. Yeah, Terran Armstead, man.
And I don't think he ever will be. He'll never be the mover that Terran Armstead is, bro.
I'm going to say something that's not popular. I thought Jake Long was severely overrated as a Miami Dolphin. I thought that year I wanted Matt Ryan. I wanted Matt Ryan so bad in that draft. I think he made the Pro Bowl because of these popularity votes. I don't think he was bad, but he didn't come to be like a Tony Baselli type player for me. I just never saw that from him. And his career was short because of the injuries. It was just one of those things. Like, I will say that despite the frustration of his availability, that I think Terran Armstead has been one of the best left tackles we've had here in 20 plus years. So was people forget, because he was injured a lot too. Brandon Albert was really good when he was here too, right? Next to him, Tunsil. That was a dominant left side, but Brandon Albert just couldn't stay healthy, right? And someone asked in the chat, is Cam Smith ever coming back? Well, 5 Dolphin players are eligible to come off the injured list at any time starting next week. Bradley Chubb, Cam Good, Isaiah Wynn, River Craycraft, Patrick McMorris, and Cam Smith has already had his practice window open. So Cam Smith is going to be back within the next 2 weeks, because he had his practice window open the same time they opened OBJ's practice window. So this is another reason why I said yesterday, Neal, I don't think they're going to make a move for a safety, because McMorris is coming back. Yeah, and look, if Cam Smith has to get on this football field, like, we like him, but if he does not play this year and show something, you can't count on him in the future. If he's got 2 dud years, like, I'm not saying you're going to cut him, but like, the window is closing for me on Cam Smith as a legitimate NFL starter, unless I start seeing him get in the game and start mixing it up, because he needs to. And, like, if you get Cam Smith,
injuries, right? Injuries and Fangio for him.
Right. And so, him, Isaiah Wynn, Bradley Chubb, if you get these guys back, this is a different Miami Dolphins team. And Craycraft, right? Because
given our receiver core, right?
We don't have, and I see, what I do think is that we're a little down on the offense. And I know it was one of your questions that you asked to start the show. Do we think we'll see this explosive offense? The answer to me is, we had a lot of injuries heading into this season, right? Like, we had the best starting receiving tandem in the league, but other than that, it looked awful, right? Like, it was a collection of, and like, I do this, and I'm guilty of it, but like, to expect Malik Washington as a 6th-round pick to come in and just automatically be a superstar, I think was a little naive. Like, to be honest,
you got to target the guy though,
right? But I think River Craycraft is such an underrated chain mover in this offense, that when Tyreek and Waddle aren't, playing to the level they expect, he's going to be the guy that can make that tough catch. And look, I know Odell played and he only had 1 target. It was intercepted by Christian Gonzalez. That was a Tyler Huntley pass. I do think that Odell Beckham is going to have a lot to say in this Dolphins offense when Tua returns. I think there's real chemistry there.
Yeah, and Huntley, in fairness, because I broke the film down, Huntley stared down OBJ the whole way. Like, that was an easy read by Christian Gonzalez. Just watched the eyes, and then he undercut it because he knew where he's going with the ball.
Yeah, I mean, Huntley against Tennessee was a D-, and against New England he was a C-. He's doing a decent job.
I agree.
We won the game, but like he's a backup. He's better than Skyler, but like there are so many throws he's not throwing.
Yeah.
So many.
Tyreek Hill 3 alone against what's it called, in his first start, and then he had a couple this week that he missed just because he wouldn't stay in the pocket. He would bail instead of, he had good protection, but he just naturally get happy feet and bail because people want to say Tua is a one-read quarterback. Go watch the Huntley tape. That was the definition of one read. If it's there, I make the throw. If it's not, I bail and try to create out of structure. That was literally what he was doing. But back to Malik Washington and this explosive offense, brother, I would be taking Barrio off punt return. I mean, this guy's fair catching balls with like 15 yards of space around him. He's offering you nothing. I know Malik probably got a little bit of a lashing too, but I mean, his heart was in the right place with that illegal blindside block, right? Like, it wasn't a nasty block. Like, he made a good block, but how the rules are right now. So, this explosive offense, if we're going to see this explosive offense, my thing is, you've got to are you ready to sacrifice that explosive offense for running the football, becoming more of a pound and ground team? Because you've seen the Chiefs make that adaptation, going from an explosive offense to what? A power football team. You've seen the Buffalo Bills make that adaptation from trying to be an explosive offense to what? A power football team now with Ray Davis and James Cook. And it's, I talked about this on the show yesterday, and I've talked about it a few times since Sunday. The league shifts every 5, 6, 7 years, and it feels like the league is shifting back to power run because everyone's in these too high shells and everyone's trying to stop all these different iterations of the Shanahan offense and all this motion and cheap motion that's coming out of Miami, and that's being seen as a countered with a lot of too high shells. And what is it, right? Too high, you got to run underneath. And that's what you're starting to see a lot of teams do. And they're starting to take the underneath stuff. So do I think we'll ever see the explosive offense again? Well, it depends on what we talked about earlier, Neal. Is he going to try and revert back to the pass-happy offense? Or is he going to try to run the football? Because here's where I stand. Running the football this week, there were still throws to be made that could have been explosives, but Huntley just either didn't make the read or he bailed out of the pocket too early and created out of structure and threw somewhere else, right? So, the explosive plays over the top were still popping up in the film this week, even with how heavily you were running the football. So it's just a matter of when Tua comes back, I think even if you turn into a power run team, those explosions are still going to be there because, I mean, you go look at Huntley's first start, right? He was seeing against Tennessee, you're seeing a lot of too high shells. Because we were running the ball so much this past week, he started seeing more cover 3, cover 1 high shells where you could beat them with one-on-ones over the middle of the field, whatever the case may be, because you had safeties biting to one side of the field, et cetera, et cetera. So I still think even if you go to a power run team, because of the speed on the boundaries and the collection of talent you have at the receiver core and the tight end core, and I'm only including Jonnu in that situation, I still think you'll be able to threaten the seams, threaten the boundaries, and threaten over the middle of the field with explosive plays, even if you run the ball well.
Yeah, Mike McDaniel, if you're listening, and you should be, the answer to the question is balance, because Reason just nailed it, right? If you run the ball like you did against New England, teams can't run cover 2 on you. You know how teams have stopped this Dolphins offense? By running cover 2, right? And it was kind of a little bit what I said earlier where, like, Devon A-Chain to me, he's a weapon. Like, maybe he's not a running back, maybe he's not a receiver. He's more of a weapon. there were some holes against Tennessee that I thought he missed that he should hit. I think Jalen Wright is the best natural running back on this team, and I think Raheem Mostert is experienced. So you use that three-headed monster, and with the best fullback right now in football. Alec Ingold, to me, has surpassed Kyle Juszczyk as the best fullback in football right now. And you take that running game, and what's going to happen is those shots that make you so happy to hit are going to be there, because we've learned that you nailed this also. When we played Tennessee, Tyreek's running with his hand down the field like, I'm open. Tua's been surgical with those throws. Those are the throws that he's hit that what we've learned, if we haven't learned anything in the last 2.5 weeks without Tua Tagovailoa, is that he's a lot better than people gave him credit for it. And I know some people are out because he doesn't win big games, and that's your prerogative. Like, I think we need insurance for Tua Tagovailoa, but let's not kid ourselves. This offense is at its best when number one is behind center. What number one has not really had in those big games is a running game. Is the offensive line going to be able to do it in the big games? I don't know. I don't know. The Patriots are a tough coach defense, but they are a little down in terms of manpower. But if you can run the football, and this is why I'm pounding the table to go sign Trey Smith as a free agent this year and still draft Tyler Booker at left guard and have them be your two guards and completely transform this offensive line, that offensive line and that running game makes everything on this offense click way better. Because when we go out in these big games and we don't, it's all because we get so pass happy and we make mistakes and we panic, right? Slow down, hand the ball to running backs, get a couple yards, move the chains, keep time of possession in your hand so it doesn't get 31-10 before you blink, right? Like, so I think the balance is what's needed, because I think they'll still have an explosive offense because all three of those running backs are all capable of breaking big runs. We've seen it, but it's also going to open up Waddle and Tyreek. And if you're a player on this football team and you care more about your targets than winning, that's why they make trades in the NFL, because this team is bigger than any player's goals or any player. This Dolphins team run the football, open up the pass, play the defense they're playing, and they're a way better version of what they could have been last year. The ball is in the air way too much, and we've been pounding the table for 2 years, man. And I love it when it works against Denver and we're riding the boat up 7-20. But games like the Buffalo Bills, when your whole game plan was to just come up and start throwing the ball over the place, it just doesn't work in the NFL. Maybe in college, if you're at Houston and that's the offense, or Texas Tech, you can do that. But in the NFL, man, you have to be able to have balance and you have to control the time of possession, and then you win, right? The Dolphins defense is better than advertised. The offense has been horrific. Get that offense back to top 5 in this league. Defense plays the way it is. The Dolphins are a tough out.
Yeah. Man. So let me ask you.
Maybe this was good for Mike McDaniel. The Tua injury when it happened, not the Tua hurt is good, but maybe this is the humbleness that he needed. Maybe he realized he isn't the smartest guy in the NFL. Maybe he got knocked down a peg and says, you know what? I'm totally overthinking this. Because you know what happened? He went to conventional offense in the second half, and the Dolphins looked like one of the best running teams in football.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe the timing early in the season, because look, I laugh about this, right? The Jets just fired their head coach. This was their Super Bowl window. We haven't had our starter for 2.5 games, and we have the same record as the New York Jets right now, right? The biggest difference for me is we have a lot of opportunity to get better because our quarterback's coming back. The Jets have a lot of opportunity to me to go get worse, right? Because they're underachieving. The Dolphins got served their humble pie early in the season, and now everything they want is in front of them. They just got to get healthy, and they got to start going back to what made them a dangerous offense. I want to see it. I'm not anointed them yet, but I know that the ingredients are there to make it happen. And I was very encouraged to see Mike McDaniel adapt in the second half last week, because that's been my biggest pet peeve with him, is his stubbornness. He swallowed his pride and said, Jalen Wright, you're up. And damn, did that kid look good.
Yeah, he did. He's earned, in my opinion, he's earned some more carries. So you made some key points that, like, we're getting bodies back, and basically things can start turning the corner, especially if we win coming out of the bye against the Colts. I'm still a little bit weary because Flacco is putting up crazy numbers in Indianapolis right now, and they're putting points on the board. They scored over 30 and lost last week, and I don't know if our offense can score 30 right now. But let me ask you this: heading into the trade deadline, and we'll start off first before we get into the quarterback topic. We'll start off with in general. Do you see the Miami Dolphins being buyers or sellers at the trade deadline this year?
Right now, standing pat to me might make a lot of sense. And the reason I say that is you got to get to a timeline back. You got to have some clarity there before you do it. But I'll say this. Chris Greer's one MO is that he will make a good deal if it's out there, right? And Jalen Phillips went down, right? Is there a pass rusher that could be moved, right? I would say that the Dolphins aren't going to go and tear this down. If anyone thinks that, I think they're wrong. I think if they're going to be one or the other, they're going to be buyers. I don't think Chris Grier, Mike McDaniel, Stephen Ross, or the players are ready to quit on this season. And I think there's probably hope of optimism with the way Tua's been carrying himself at the facility that he's going to be back sooner than later. And that could spark a team, right? So I don't think I think there's 0% chance the Dolphins are going to be sellers at the deadline. I think it's zero, literally. I think they will add a player if it's necessary. I don't know. We'll see a big splash like we've seen in a year because I think they are cognizant of their resources, meaning their cap space and draft picks for the future, because they do have to plan a contingency around Tua Tagovailoa going forward, right? Like that is homework assignment that Chris Grier, if he's here, and the front office has to have. So I would say I expect them to actually make a trade, but I don't think it'll be a blockbuster. I think it'll be probably like a good rotational type of edge rusher is like I could see. I'll tell you this, though, reason them making and pursuing Matt Judon before the season makes a lot of sense, right? Like why they wanted him makes a lot of sense. Is there anybody else out there that they could get in that realm? Maybe, right? Like maybe, but I don't think there'll be sellers. If anything, they're adding.
So you don't see them making a move for Hassan Reddick or an Azeez Ojulari who's on the block, do you?
Ojulari would be the guy that I'd be interested in. I don't think the Jets would ever trade Reddick to us, though. I just don't have interdivision trade. I don't know if that guy plays. I don't know if you saw he's getting like sued by an investment he was in. Like he's got a lot going on.
I didn't see that. No.
He had a business deal that he did, and I think he's getting sued for like $1.8 million because he never paid. He
needs to play then because he needs to get that money, bro.
Right, but I think he's scorned with the Jets, man, and I don't think it's going to work out. Like I think they're going to trade him at the deadline and take a loss on it. I really do. If they get Devontae Adams, they're going to have to do that.
Could you see them adding another interior defensive lineman to stop the run, to help stop the run, like a DJ Jones from Denver or someone?
Well, I'm going to stand back to what we said. If they make an impact, I think it's going to be a Washington Commander defensive lineman, and it's Jonathan Allen or Daron Payne. I think they're going to they're and people are like, oh, you're crazy. The Commanders are good. Yeah, they also have Jer'Zhan Newton sitting on the bench. They didn't draft him in the top of the second round to sit on the bench.
Yeah, and like Calais Campbell is old. They don't know how long they have with him, right?
Right. So I think 100% that. And I heard it on local radio here like last week, and I laughed. Like they said that if a player's moved the deadline, keep an eye on one of the defensive linemen for the Commanders. Like there was a lot of noise around that. So I could totally see and Jonathan Allen I like a lot, but I also like Daron Payne. Don't get me wrong. Daron Payne is a young guy that you can stick in the middle of his defense. So I'm interested to see what they do.
Him and Sieler would be nasty moving forward.
They get this Colts win and get Tua back. The possibilities are endless.
I think he's back. I think he's coming back, brother, for Arizona. Yeah,
me too. I think
that's what I said when he first went down, and I think brother, he did not want to go on IR. And the stuff I've heard behind the scenes, like I've heard Ross is very weary about trusting him, and if he gets hurt again, they're worried about how that's going to impact the franchise and their outlook and stuff like that, and it'll trigger a bunch of injury guarantees, but. honestly, I think Ross's desire to win outweighs that. But also, from what I've heard, is like, right immediately after that injury, like I heard when he was walking down the tunnel, he said, I want to go back in. When he was walking down the tunnel and they're taking him to the room, then when they checked him out, I heard he said, can I go back in? And they said, no, like, we're not letting you go back in.
I love Tua because he's a warrior, man, and I love that mindset. To me, without my PhD, if he gets another concussion, it's a whole different story. I think the Dolphins.
But bro, like the Bengals concussion, a lot of people don't know this, but in the Bengals concussion, I heard he was fencing, posturing in the ambulance, and then I heard 24 hours later he had a fencing response. 24 hours later, I've heard from the get-go that this concussion has been nowhere near the severity of the ones he suffered in 2022.
Right. And look, I think there's going to be conversations this offseason whether the Dolphins should move on because they have this out. I think there's going to be conversations whether the Dolphins should draft a quarterback. But the reality of it is that Tua wants to come back. He's going to be cleared. The Dolphins need him to come back, and they got a season to play. So we're going to see Tua back out there, and his play will determine a lot of the answers to those questions. We're going to see a motivated Tua. We're going to see this team. If you're Tyreek Hill, you're Jalen Waddle, and your production has been what it's been, and you get Tua back, you are going to be out there with your pants on fire because you're going to be so excited. We're there. Tua is. I learned this. This is a lesson I learned. Tua is the most important player on this football team. Easy to say, Neal, it's a quarterback. I always thought it was Tyreek Hill. I'll be honest. I thought it was Tyreek Hill. And it's Tua Tagovailoa. Like, I've learned that in the last 2.5 games without him. Because
so is Mike McDaniel. He's learned that the hard way.
And I mean this. Like, you see this. But Tyreek is a different type of receiver than a Justin Jefferson. Like, he has a different skill set.
Yeah.
And his skill set is that he needs the ball delivered in a certain spot because he's not 6'4" and can out jump people, right? Like, that's not his game. Like, he needs the ball delivered to him down the field with his ability to run under the football. And we have nobody in this organization besides Tua Tagovailoa that can do that. And to be honest, like, I know we named a lot of backups, but like Ryan Tannehill couldn't do that. Like, the quarterbacks that are available can't do that. Like, that's like Tua has a superpower when it comes to playing with Tyreek Hill, which is why Tyreek Hill has been more productive. I'm not saying better than with Pat Mahomes, but more productive. And it's Tua. I think Tua looks up to Tyreek Hill a little bit, and he likes to get him the football, which is smart. And because of that, I think they have great synergy when they play together. And I do think we've seen Jalen Waddle actually sacrifice a little bit because of that connection. And he's been the good soldier, but like, get the ball running, spread that out. This offense can get right back on track. Get everyone healthy, get Isaiah Wynn back, and then you have some depth in the interior. I think Patrick Paul did a decent job filling in when he came in. He didn't throw up all over himself. We know Kendall Lamb is a good backup. Austin Jackson's starting to play a lot better at right tackle again, which is encouraging to see. I mean, to me, man, the real problem is Liam Eichenberg. Like, Liam Eichenberg is still the biggest problem on this football team.
I thought, well, okay, in fairness, him and Robert Jones just finally had a good game. But Liam Eichenberg, I thought he was awful, but then he was really strong on that touchdown drive. Like, he was really, like, that was some of his best football he's played this season on that touchdown drive where we were getting, we were setting that physical tone. But back to the quarterback situation, I think the best, most ideal situation for us is this. Tua comes back, Tua stays healthy, we win a little bit. They keep Tua, they draft a quarterback in the first round. You groom that quarterback under Tua next year, and Tua stays healthy, and you're sitting there, you're like, listen, we got a healthy Tua, but we also got a healthy guy we just drafted in the first round. Either we're going to move off of Tua and after the first year, and we're going to move forward with this young kid, or Tua's playing so well, he stayed healthy. We are going to keep developing this young kid behind him, waiting for if that injury happens, and then we'll move off of Tua and insert this young kid. That's the like, and man, talk about drafting quarterbacks this weekend, Neal. You got Shedeur Sanders against Kansas State. You got my boys facing off. Garrett Nussmeier, one of my top 3 guys, against Jackson Dart, and Jackson Dart's my number 4 quarterback. Quinn Ewers against Oklahoma, because apparently Quinn Ewers is coming back this weekend. Drew Aller versus Miller Moss. That's a good matchup too. Jalen Milroe's going to face South Carolina, who Jackson Dart had a okay first half against, but then really struggled in the second half with accuracy. I think Jackson Dart's hurt, bro. He was missing vertical throws in the first half that he makes with his like eyes closed. And then the second half, the wheels fell off. Like I believe he was like, I think he was like, I want to say he was like 11 or 12 of for 14 or 15 heading into the second half, and then he finished like 14 of 26. Like he really struggled. I think Jackson Dart's hurt or whatever, but Garrett Nussmeier, man, that is going to be a big game for both of those teams. Number 9 against number 13, Ole Miss and LSU, right? Like 7:30 on Saturday. I'll be watching that game for sure because.
And it's Oregon, Ohio State. Will Howard from Ohio State's a guy that's getting that 3rd, 4th round draft love. And Dylan Gabriel, he's a transfer from Oklahoma. But yeah, man, look, this quarterback class has talent. And honestly, it's hard, I think, to hit your wagon on who's the best. I'd love to get my hands on Jalen Milroe and allow him to learn behind Tua.
I think he needs to go back to Bama for another year and become a better passer.
He has Josh Allen qualities to me. And I mean that in the most complimentary way. Like, I think he's a stud, man, and he could carry that Alabama. Now, look.
You're crazy, hog wild. Cam Ward is like the number 1 quarterback off the board probably right now.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, he's definitely going to go top 5.
But he's got the gene. That comeback this past weekend, give me a break.
And look, man, Cam Ward is a special football player. He could go number 1 overall. I'd like to say he's not a first. Like, those type of like I've seen people that like had Shedeur
like Milroe's not a better passer, hog wild. I'm sorry. Okay, sorry. Continue. I just gotta
Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, Jalen Milroe. That those are 3 guys that I absolutely. I mean, look, we got a long way to go from there, but I do think it's really fun to watch these quarterbacks and what we've learned, and this is why we're talking quarterbacks. This isn't kick Tua to the curb. We have learned that having 2 quarterbacks is a lot better than having 0.
Yeah,
and that's the one thing that I know is, as much as I love Tua Tagovailoa, he's my favorite player that plays the game of football on the planet. I do not want to go into another season where it's him and a bunch of guys that should work at a grocery store playing quarterback, because our whole season, if Tua didn't come back as quickly as he could in this situation, this season would have been a lost season. We have to win against Indianapolis, I think, to keep it on the right track. But I do think Tua's playing against Arizona, and I take a lot of comfort in knowing that his return is right on the horizon, especially if you beat a conference team coming out of a bye week, which should be motivated.
Are Ward, Shedeur, and Milroe your top 3 guys?
Yes, but man, I'm not ready yet to put them in order because there's so much wood to chop. Like right now, I like
Cam Shedeur and Nussmeier are my 3. If I'm just going by talent and not favors, those are my 3 top guys.
Nussmeier is my 4, and see, I'm not as high on Quinn Ewers as everyone else. I like Quinn Ewers. I think he has an injury history.
I think McDaniel's going to love him. That's the problem, bro.
He has a unique delivery that I think coaches are going to try to change, and because of that, it scares me a little bit, right? And then I'm really starting to sour on Carson Beck. I think he goes round 1, but I don't want him for the Dolphins. Like for me, there's 4 quarterbacks the Dolphins could take in round 1. It depends also where the Dolphins are drafting. Right now, ESPN predicts the Dolphins to draft 4th overall. I don't think there's a chance the Dolphins are going to be drafted 4th overall. But I do think you got to keep an eye on these quarterbacks because, man, they're all making plays. And what I like a lot about them is that most of them can hurt you with their arm and their legs. And I think that's where this game is evolving. And, I'd love to see what we could if we had a quarterback that could create out of structure. But again, like in a perfect world, Tua's healthy and this guy is just holding a clipboard. Like that's my 2025 vision for that player. It's not he's getting drafted.
We don't want to force him out there, bro.
If we had the 1st overall pick and we took Cam Ward, I'm just going to throw a scenario. I don't want him to touch the field in 2025. Now in 2026, then you have a conversation. Because you didn't draft the guy number 1 overall to have it. But right now, for this year and next year, this is Tua Tagovailoa's team. And, if you get to that point where you're looking and you have 2 bona fide franchise type quarterbacks, there's teams that are going to trade you 3 times your investment for that type of pick. So I think, it's good that we're having this conversation because I think it's a conversation a lot of people are afraid to have. And I think it is we're Tua fans. We're not kicking them. We're not throwing them off the boat. But what we are saying is
we want a legit contingency plan in place.
right. We want a talented, high caliber franchise type of quarterback that is our backup plan in case we ever do get us to an unfortunate situation where Tua gets a concussion or an injury.
And it's cheaper than having to pay 10 to 15 million a year for that legitimate veteran backup. But it's funny you mentioned that about Carson Beck, because if I'll give you my top 5 in no particular order: Newsmeyer, Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart, and Jalen Milroe. Carson Beck is like my 6th guy. He's literally like right outside my top 5.
Right.
I'm the same with you. I just think Milroe, if he comes back for another year, I think he has a chance of being the number 1 pick, 110%. But speaking of quarterbacks, Tyler Huntley is the current backup. Russell Wilson appears to be healthy in Pittsburgh right now. We have Darrell Bevell as our quarterbacks coach, who has a lot of success with Russell Wilson. We're talking about a contingency plan for the rest of this year because who knows what's going to happen with Tua when he comes back. We saw what happened in 2022. Would you be more comfortable with trying to acquire a legitimate backup contingency plan like a Russell Wilson, or rolling with Tyler Huntley as the primary backup for the rest of the year?
Look, I like Tyler Huntley. He's been serviceable. He's done nothing to show me he secured this backup quarterback job. Nothing. Like, I'm actually underwhelmed a little bit by Tyler Huntley with the expectations that I've kind of put on him coming here. So, what we got to think about Russell Wilson is, I think with the games they've already played, he's only going to cost you about $1 million against the cap. He was like,
he's cheap.
He was a sweetheart deal. So if you ask me today, if we would send a 4th round pick in 2026, that could be a 3rd round pick if he plays a certain amount of time, I would do it in a second, right? Because I don't think you have to touch your 2025 draft class. The Steelers are a patient organization. They don't have a lot of immediate needs, and they're rolling with Justin Fields. I would totally take Russell Wilson as a backup here over Tyler Huntley because it's the same cost. It's the same cost. And a 4th round draft pick, if we haven't learned anything, when we stockpile these draft picks like a squirrel hoarding nuts, these 4th round picks rarely turn out to be much. And I know Jalen Wright's playing amazing, and it is what it is. But like those middle round picks to me are lottery tickets. If you get Russell Wilson here and he's your backup to Tua, we probably have one more win and we're 3-2 right now. That Seattle game, even though it got ugly at the end, I think the defense just exhaled. I think that was a very winnable game. So I would totally make that move, and I think it's a low cost move and low risk, high reward, and I think Russell Wilson would welcome it, to be honest.
Well, the other thing too, Neal, is last year he rushed for 341 yards and 3 touchdowns. He's in 15 games, he threw for 3,070 yards and 26 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. And he was made the scapegoat in Denver. And it was evident that he was nowhere near one of their biggest problems. It's just Sean Payton didn't want him and didn't like him. And now he's got Bo Nix. Russell Wilson looks like he's still got some gas left in the tank. And I would agree with what some people in the chat are saying. I mean, he's legitimately a better option than Huntley right now. And if you are truly all in trying to win a playoff game this year, could you name a better quarterback to come in for Tua right now that's available than Russell Wilson? That's available. Keyword is available. I think that would shore up a legitimate contingency plan concern we all have. And I think, God forbid, if something does happen to Tua when he comes back, that would probably be your best option. And Tua comes back, however long he plays, until, God forbid, something happens to him again, that would give Russell Wilson the time needed to get acclimated to this offense. Him and Darrell Bevell have a good relationship. I think that would show you taking this season much more seriously than Tyler Huntley being your contingency plan.
Oh, 100%. And look, you look at options, right? Who's out there?
Yeah.
Like it's hard to find a better option as a backup than Russell Wilson. And this isn't saying Russell Wilson's the same guy who's going to be a gold jacket guy, going in for the Seattle Seahawks, but this is a guy that still played a very high, he had a good football season last year, right? Like a lot of people are afraid to say that, but he had a good football season. I think the Steelers are a better team with Russell Wilson over Justin Fields personally. Like, I think Russell Wilson at least
but they're just not messing with what's working. That's all it feels like, right?
And you know what? Why would they?
Agreed.
Like, you got to ride the hot hand. But I think Russell Wilson has that smarts and that savviness. And like you said, in an unfortunate situation that, let's just say Tua got hurt, Mike McDaniel could give the play calling duties to Darrell Bevel, who's called plays, for Russell Wilson, and make him very comfortable here. So I think it's and look, Tua and Russell have an outstanding relationship, and that matters here. Like, I don't think Russell Wilson would have any problem taking a back seat to Tua Tagovailoa and being ready in case he's needed. Again, that's a very low, because typically when a guy like that is available, it's a $10, $15 million cap hit. Like for a little bit over $1 million, it's a no-brainer to me.
Yeah. The only thing the only knock that he'd have is he's far more of an out of structure guy than in structure, right, Russell? That's his only knock. But I mean, he has a better arm than Huntley. You've seen what he's done with talent like Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. So I think he'd be able to utilize guys like Waddle and Tyreek Hill. Now, is he the best option for timing and anticipation throws? Probably not. But you made a very good point that I never even thought about. You could hand it over to Darrell Bevel and say, run with it. You've had success with this guy before. Let's see what you got. You know what I mean? So that's a great point.
Right, because here's what we know. If Tua went down, we're not winning anything significant with Tyler Huntley, right? We know that. If he goes down, we're a 5-12 football team probably, right? Like, that's just the reality of what it is. Russell Wilson can eke out some games against these bad teams. And again, we might be 3-2 versus it. And, if you make a mistake, and the Dolphins, what they did at the backup quarterback position was probably even worse than coming in here thinking that those guards were going to be capable NFL players. Like, this is an opportunity to right your wrong. And the Dolphins and the Steelers have made trades before, right?
Yeah.
Minka Fitzpatrick. Like, they've had those organizations are no strangers to each other. So, if you and the Steelers, what they get out of it is they get a draft pick, but they also get to put out the flame that could be a quarterback controversy in Pittsburgh, right? Like, Mike McDaniel's a smart man. He might not want to deal with the nonsense of every time Justin Fields makes a bad pass, they should put Russell Wilson in. That's taxing on you during an NFL season. And here in Miami, Justin Fields just doesn't have the keys to the castle the way Tua does in Miami. It's not even close.
Yeah. Over 325 of you in the room on YouTube right now. Do us a favor, smash the like button, subscribe if you are new. Got any final thoughts before we get out of here?
I hate the bye week. Hate it.
I
hate it. I know. I'm excited that the teams get healthy. I'd rather watch the Dolphins lose than not play at all, man. I'll be honest. Like, it sucks. Yeah. I'm excited to watch the Monday night game between the Jets and Bills because whoever wins, that helps Miami. And I'm on Tua watch, man. I think we could any day get that official news that he's cleared because we know he had a big meeting this week. And once we get that news, we got a game to win against Indianapolis, but that changes everything I think about this season. Because I will say, in previous weeks when I was up here, I was not confident that Tua was coming back against Arizona. I thought that the NFL, the Dolphins, everyone would operate on the side of caution, and maybe they have. And to what you said earlier, the concussion just wasn't as significant as past. But I'm excited because the Dolphin season has a heartbeat. And if this team can learn to not be what they were last year, it doesn't matter how you start in this league. We learned this last year. It's how you finish. So let's get back. Let's get healthy, and let's go beat the Colts in what's that, 10 days.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow I'll be live for a lunchtime matinee with Omar Kelly. So be out on the lookout for tomorrow's show, around 12 p.m. I'll be live with Omar Kelly for a bye-week special. I'm working on something maybe that'll drop on Sunday for all of you guys as well. So the content is going to keep flowing as we go through the bye week and then transition into Colts week, and I'm praying Anthony Richardson comes back so we don't have to deal with Flacco. I'm not going to lie. So, guys, do us a favor. Like I said, well over 320 of you in the room. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you're new, and we will catch you on the next one. Until then, you already know what time it is. Fins up all day, every day. Have a fantastic rest of the evening.